Thief, a name that brings back a lot of strong memories for PC gamers for being one of the first stealth type games out there that encourages sneaking instead of fighting. The series unfortunately disappeared in 2004 and we wouldn't hear anything apart from rumours and whispers about a new Thief game until 2013, when a reboot of the franchise was announced to be in development by Eidos Montreal and was just called Thief. Should Thief return quickly to the shadows where it once came from, or does this game help reinvent the stealth genre like Dishonored did in 2012? Set in the steampunk Victorian medieval times in a place only known as the City, you follow Garrett, a master thief who steals from the rich and the poor alike and cares for no one but himself. The game starts with a job to steal something from a baron who controls the city, and you are joined by your progeny, Erin, in this task on the way to the manor. Things go badly when you encounter the Baron and his followers, who are conducting a ritual of some kind, and Erin and Garrett gets mixed up in the mess. You lose your memory and a whole year from your life while Erin seems to have disappeared. Garrett sets about finding Erin and uncovering the truth behind the Baron and his mystical cult he is part of. The story is all pretty self-explanatory from there, and you can expect all your story-based tropes from betrayal, a mysterious plague of nature, a revolution taking place, an antagonist who appears at the end of every chapter twirling his mustache and more. You can generally forgive tropes like this if the story is engaging and the characters you encounter are likeable, but this isn't the case. Garrett just seems to attract the worst kind of people, but that doesn't stop games creating great characters, but none of them are interesting. Even Garrett, the main anti-hero of the story, sounds so uninterested in what he's doing, and that tells me, the player, why should I care? For someone who keeps saying he doesn't want to get involved, he sure does like to get involved with the politics of the city. The timeline for the story is insane as well. At the beginning of the game, beggars are dying on the street of Gloom, and then the next week there's a full-blown revolution breaking out in the city, and somehow this mob has got hands on massive explosives that they can bombard towers with in the distance owned by the Baron. It's just unbelievable. And the twists that happen in the story you could generally see coming from a mile away. And when the cutscenes play out, you're just uninterested, and most of the time I walked off and made a drink. The name of the game is Thief, so you would expect the game based around this mechanic, which in some parts is correct. The game is split into two sections, the main story-based mission spread across 8 chapters, and the hub city itself that contains side missions, shops, collectibles, and a way to link all the story chapters together in small instance-like areas. The game's main mechanic encourages you to stay in the dark, which the tutorial will force upon you with an instant fail if you are spotted by any guards during it. Thankfully, this doesn't carry over to the main game. You'll do this by hiding in the shadows, putting out lights, running on the rooftops and sneaking through any air ducts you can exploit. You will have a bunch of tools to assist with the task of concealment, and an array of arrows that Garrett can use for his preferred weapon, the bow. You can let loose water arrows that can put out fires, turn off light switches with blunt arrowheads, or create rope ladders to help climb up to higher places in the map. You'll get access to merchants who sell you lockpicking gear to help you unlock things, obviously, wire cutters to disable traps, and a bolt screw to help you unlock grates and steel panels from around the map. These are the tools of the trades for the player who wants to stay concealed and access everything, but it becomes incredibly tricky to stay unseen when you're put against some of the dumbest and unreliable AI you'll ever encounter in gaming. Guards are virtually blind and can't see you in the dark, even if they are facing directly in your direction. Then other times, they will instantly detect you, without warning, and then you're left with few options. The UI will try to assist letting you know when you're hidden with a globe in the corner. If it is white, you are visible. If it is blacked out, you're hidden, mostly anyway. If you get spotted, you can attempt to fight off the enemy with your melee weapon, the blackjack, which is considered a poor option, especially if there's more than one guard. Running away and trying to find a hiding place until they give up and reset to their AI pathing. Or you could choose my preferred method, or bolt to the next checkpoint, since most of the time they will reset the AI and you're a whole lot faster than them. An example of the poor AI is as followed. I accidentally revealed myself to some guards and ran down an alleyway, which turned out to be a dead end. It was lighted brilliantly, and there was only one place I could hide, in a cupboard. The guards chased me down there, looked around, then gave up. It's also incredible how smart the AI can suddenly become as well after you've been used to this dumb AI. I've had guards been looking for me for like a minute to 2 minutes and then suddenly look in the cupboard I've been hiding in for 2 minutes while I waited for the AI to path as well. It's just all over the place. This wouldn't be a problem as much if it wasn't so hard to detect them as well. You do have access to an ability called Focus that highlights things in the world in a blue hue that you can loot, need to avoid or interact with. You can upgrade your abilities further so you can see enemy movement through walls, but you can't depend on this all the time since your focus will drain while using it. Getting through the latter half of the game gets even more difficult by cutting off more routes, increasing the amount of light sources in the game, and increasing the amount of guards in the area as well. And it feels like the game has stacked the cards against you, and your only way to get through it is with trial and error. The game portrays Garrett as someone who is agile, evasive and light on his feet, but the controls conflict with this image and you'll feel like a clumsy person when you have to play him out outside the cutscenes. Instead of allowing the player the choice of freely jumping, you can only activate the jump to cross gaps in the environment or to grab onto ropes, or in designated points you can climb up walls. This becomes frustrating since you can clearly see ways to jump around the environment, but the game won't let you. Then, when you can jump, you'll miss your target half the time since the game is calculating your jump by the direction you're looking in, and there will be many instances when you jump at a rope or a ledge and you will fall to your death. I've had times when I'm just walking near an edge and I will just instantly die. I can't see why this design choice was implemented other than players exploiting it somehow. When you're not slipping or sliding off the edge, you'll get stuck in the environment, or even the game will deny you access up edges that has been installed for you to climb as well. I even had situations where I couldn't continue since the scripted guard walked away from the air duct I was hiding in, and I needed to use a takedown to exit the air vent, forcing me to reload my save. For some reason the loot key button is the same as the peek command, so you'll be looting something from a table and then suddenly grabbing the table peeking around its corner. Most corners in the game will allow you to peek around them, but most of the time you'll grab the wrong one or not be given the choice to peek at all. Dishonored did this so much better by just letting the player lean and be unseen, which was a great compromise for this first person stealth game. When not fighting the controls, you'll be facing off against the only two enemy types in the game, the generic guards and the mysterious creatures that can see you in the dark and could detect your presence if you get too close to them, which makes it virtually impossible to get past them undetected. You could attempt to kill the guards with your bow, but you need to purchase a lot of upgrades to do that, and generally when you try to do this, all the guards and creatures in that area will be alerted. Oh yes, I should mention, headshots with the best arrow in the game will not kill them. You can knock out guards, but this is generally hard to pull off successfully since another guard nearby will be alerted to your presence if there is any presence of light at all. It's not the quietest of takedowns either from my experience, even though the game says it is. Then there are environmental hazards you'll have to get past as well, which can give your presence away. Walking through deep water or through the many hundreds of smashed glass bottles around the game's world will produce noise giving your location away. You can bypass this by creeping across it in the most excruciatingly slow movement speed in video gaming ever. Then there are animals the guards have decided to cage in areas so when you get close to them they will make noise and let the guards know if someone is nearby. You can knock them out with a gas arrow, but as soon as you let loose the arrow, it makes noise and lets the guard know you're there. It's a catch-22 situation, so you'll just have to try and run past them if you can. As I said before, you can extinguish lights in areas, but guards will just relight them, and some may even take notice of the arrow hitting the torch. Removing light sources becomes even more tricky when everything becomes steampunk and electronic. Near the end of the game, the situation it presents the players will just seem impossible to get through 100% unnoticed. And when some of the challenges are to be undetected or not to injure any guards, I just can't fathom how to do this without quick saving and loading all the time. Especially since you're having to rely on the artificial intelligence working correctly and your controls to work as well. The game does offer choice at key moments during the mission on multiple ways to break into houses, but you'll generally always end up at the same intersection where it becomes super linear again, and there is only one way to go. In the end, to just complete the game's final few chapters, I just ran to the exit to initiate a checkpoint and would carry on from where I was up to because the enemies struggled to follow you through them as well. That's enough harking on the game for a bit. Let's talk about one thing it gets right, the act of thievery. When you're not tackling the story missions, you'll get to explore the hub world. Here you're not confined to corridors, but a sprawling city split across 3 to 4 areas, separated by load screens with plenty of secrets to uncover and side missions. This was where I had the most fun, since you could freely run around the rooftops, avoid the guards and loot to your heart's content. When I was getting sick of the story, I just did side thieving missions and exploring the city and just stealing anything that wasn't pinned down. Reading all the miniature side stories was great, however, Garrett came up behind me and slapped me over the back of the head with the blackjack, and it broke my immersion again. For example, I had collected a bunch of side missions and one was to steal a manuscript being written about a noble woman from an author. Along the way to the novelist's house, I found a store window left open, so I decided I would steal everything that's inside. Once I entered, Garrett decided he could read the future and proclaimed the manuscript was here, even though he had no knowledge of this. I didn't understand what he was on about at the time and started to look for this so-called manuscript. I couldn't find it. I soon discovered I needed to go to the novelist's house first to overhear him telling someone he had taken the manuscript to the bookstore which I had just been in. I returned to the store to find the manuscript had magically appeared in the store. Another example was I had to steal from a woman who was fast asleep in the room I was in. The father of said woman then randomly walked into her room in the middle of the night and spotted me, and a loud, noisy fight broke out between me and him. After knocking the gentleman out, I turned to see the lady was still heavily asleep in the bed. At the time I was shocked and I didn't think about attacking her just to see if she would wake up. I wish I had. This is some of the many examples that breaks the game immersion. This mixed with the unreliable stealth mechanics and the clumsy controls that makes one of the key aspects of the game just less fun to play. The game gets the dark gritty streets right and you could believe this being an unlivable world, but the non-story characters inhabiting it look horrifically bland compared to the main cast, and those aren't amazing either, especially on next gen consoles and PC. You'll be exploring the same environments again and again, and there isn't much diversity between them. They all seem to contain the same loot as well. By the end of the game, you will probably have stolen 100 pens, 100 forks, and more. There is one section that stood out during Chapter 5, however, that reminded me of games like Outlast and Amnesia, with jump scares around every corner, but that gets tedious eventually as well. If you have gotten to the end of this review and think there can't be anything worse about this game, I will now point to you the biggest sin this game performed for me: sound design. I have never come across such sloppy work in audio design and audio leveling in my whole gaming career, and this just takes the biscuit. Character voice levels are all over the place, either being too quiet and you can't hear them while they talk to another person who's just fine.
Yes, Peach and Neroli. They're good girls.
Then I expect that to be reflected in your contribution.
Which requires you to put subtitles on to even hear what they're on about. Then you've got characters' voices overpowering other conversations within the environment, even though you're 3 rooms away from them.
Come on! Give me all you've got. Give me all you've got, come on! You can do better than that, my love. Harder!
Lilac,
come on.
I think you do it on purpose.
More.
No, I don't
Give
like
it to
to
me.
wait.
Oh.
Man as important as I and the Baron.
This also transfers over to the guards, which makes it incredibly difficult to locate them with sound, since you can't tell if they are in the next room or in another location of the house, who aren't a threat to you at this present time. All the guards seem to have taken training from ninjas as well, and make no noise while walking around, and you'll be caught off guard a lot of the time because you didn't hear them slowly walk up to you. The game also has a lot of music to intensify the experience, and will boom out at an insane volume and will drown everything out in the game world, and I had to quickly turn my volume down after being caught off a few times and being deafened by it. Thief tries to climb up high, but falls and breaks its neck with this travesty of a stealth game. It feels like the team who made this game had lots of different ideas that just didn't meld well together. If they had only taken some lessons from its predecessor and other stealth games like Dishonored, it could have been amazing. It's more upsetting to see the very promising master difficulty, which would let you customize your game's hardness by removing key elements like no focus, only stealth takedowns, Iron Man mode, and more, will not come to pass, but for only the hardcore gamers out there who want a next to near impossible challenge. The most upsetting thing here for me is the game will sometimes click together for the briefest of seconds, then it just falls apart. With an uninteresting story that puts the art stealing to the background and is only there as a source of money for the upgrades in the game, I just couldn't recommend this game to anyone at full price. If you're looking for a next gen game for your shiny PS4 or Xbox One, give it a miss and wait for something else. If you're looking for a good stealth game, then look no further than Dishonored. That game does stealth effectively, multiple ways to play the game, not punishing you if you screw up, 2 great pieces of story DLC along with the game's main story, and being really cheap now at the moment. That's about it for Thief. If you've enjoyed this review, or hate me for it, let me know what you think. And subscribe to my channel and check out my weekly news segments on my channel along with reviews for Donkey Kong's Tropical Freeze and The Last of Us DLC, Left Behind. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.